Morrison, your podcast host, and I'd like to welcome you to the My Brand HQ podcast, all things personal branding for career acceleration. This podcast is for talented, ambitious career professionals like you who are wanting to be perceived as a thought leader, to be top of mind to those that matter, and to make an impact and stand out, be that in your team, your organization, or your industry, and to be inspired by other successful leaders. I will be interviewing high-achieving career professionals who have carved out a successful career in their field and are open to sharing their career journey, their challenges, their learnings and insights with you, someone who is looking to establish your personal brand and accelerate your career. Through my personal branding and coaching practice, I enable career professionals primarily in the technology industry to earn more money, to increase their salary. In fact, I spoke to all of my past clients that I've worked with over the several years and learned that actually overall, they've received an average of 47% increase in their package. Would that be a great place to be? They've also all achieved at least one, if not more, promotions or moved on to a higher level in their career at another organization. And they're looking to advance their career while showing up as the best version of themselves. If this sounds like you, then do reach out to me and let's have a chat. And why do I do this? Well, during my corporate career spanning 25 years, I quickly realized that hard work alone was not enough to get me to where I wanted to be and the success that I strive for. And my belief is that hard work, coupled with creating and establishing a strong personal brand, can both influence and accelerate your career and get you to where you want to be.
In today's episode, I'm speaking with Paul Morrison. Paul is an enthusiastic and passionate leader in education with over 25 years experience in the IT sector. He serves as the UK&I lead for primary, secondary and further education for Zoom Video Communications Inc., where he helps schools and colleges to use video communications technology so that teacher and student can participate in classes no matter if they are in school or at home. Paul has a proven track record of success, transforming educational establishments using technology and providing professional development of academic staff and students. He's also served 9 years at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise UK&I and has been nominated for many awards, including the National Diversity Award, the Black British Business Award, and he also won a Global Recognition Award presented to him by Reverend Jesse Jackson in the US. Outside of work, Paul provides ongoing leadership and mentoring and support to students in the education system through a number of programs. In today's episode, Paul shares with us how he impacts the lives of young people through the education sector and technology, why having a mentor opens up new opportunities and gets you there faster, how you can identify and showcase your own value to your organization. He shares his views on diversity and inclusion and taking responsibility and control for your own destiny, and why surrounding yourself with the right people directly influences your success. So let's head over and hear what Paul has to say. For those of you watching this on the video podcast on My Brand TV on YouTube, I would like to apologize in advance for the poor lighting on my part during this interview. I had to relocate at the last minute just ahead of the interview and was unable to set up appropriate lighting. So my apologies. However, the focus is on Paul, so I hope you enjoy the interview irrespective. Paul, hi there, and welcome to My Brand HQ. Thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm fabulous, thank you. I'm so privileged actually to be on this interview. I've been watching some of your interviews and I think they're absolutely fantastic. So the fact that you called out to me is just, it's just incredible. So thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. I am very much looking forward to this. So let's get stuck in. First of all, tell me, you over the last several years in your career, you've been very focused around education. So how did you end up in the education sector for tech?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I've been thinking about the whole thing around education, and I almost made myself believe that I've only ever done education. But actually, I started in tech from a very young age. When I left school, I was always interested in either tech or being a social worker. Those are the two things that I wanted to do. But I ended up going into the world of tech. I used to be an aerospace technician, and I started off doing things for aeroplanes and defense systems. And then I decided to go from there into the world of consultancy and in sales. But my major focus was actually retail. I started in retail. I looked after various accounts such as Asda, Morrison's, M&S, and so on. And it was a time when I sadly lost a very close friend of mine who I worked with. And when I met with my new manager, I was asked, what do you want to do? My answer to that question was, what's broken? What do you want me to focus on? And he decided, education was, an area that needed a lot of work. So, cut a long story short, I started working in the education sector. But what I was able to do is use my focus on tech, but also my passion about giving back to the next generation, supporting young people. And I was able to somehow merge the two together. And that's when I really found out that education was the almost like the de facto, the place where I felt the most comfortable. There was a few amazing people who helped me to start this journey in education. I'd love to call out a few names, but Ben Brown, Tina Hall, Duncan Kerr were the three who kind of helped me get into education. And then after that, I started to work very closely with a guy called Ross Henderson. And then there's other people that came along, which was like Paul Berry, Beth, and various others. But education has been really my focus for some time, quite a few years. And yeah, long may it last.
So is that a passion that has evolved during that time for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only have I had the opportunity to be involved in some of the amazing programs, the government programs, whether that's free school program, the priority schools building program, building schools for the future, and those types of programs, but I've also been able to utilize some of my contacts and network into schools to go and make difference to the life of young people. I currently mentor schools, one in Tottenham that I go in and do lots of work with students. I've just been so privileged to be able to go into some of these schools and really make a difference and really sow some of my experience into those next generation who don't often see what we see, what I see. They don't often get that opportunity that I've got. So if I can go and, give back to them and show them what is possible, then that's what I'm trying to do.
I love that. I love it. I mean, that's a big thing in terms of what I do is wanting people to recognize what is possible for them. So I love what you're doing. And what would you say has been perhaps the biggest impact you have made in anything that you've done, whether it's a talk you've given or someone that you've mentored? Is there anything that really stands out? I'm sure there's loads, but what really stands out for you is one or two things?
There is loads. I think one of my highlights, there was a school in Tottenham that I provided quite a few devices for them, which was really about helping them to be able to do more online work. But as well as that, I took a cohort of students. So I took quite a few students into the city. I took them to the House of Lords. So I got them to meet a real Lord. I got them to interview Lord Gadia from the House of Lords. I also took them to a company in West Midlands in Westminster, and they got to meet some of the fabulous people from Cantor. And it's just being able to show them what's possible. And just seeing them walking around the House of Lords was just phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal to see these young students, some of them have never even been out of Tottenham, being able to show them, you know, these establishments which they've only ever seen on TV. So I just think that was one of my highlights, I think.
Wow, amazing. I'm sure they'll remember that for the rest of their lives, won't they?
Yes, absolutely. They sent me a beautiful message afterwards. Thank you, Paul Morrison and Lord Gadier, for an amazing time at the House of Lords, and just seeing, well, one, they put Lord Gadier and Paul Morrison in the same sentence, which was still a bit crazy, but just the fact that I was able to impact them so much was just, yeah, just amazing.
Yeah, really, truly. So, and tell me a little bit about the work you do in terms of diversity and inclusion.
Wow, where do I start? So most of what I do is supporting the next generation. You know, we've just been through a crazy period of lockdown, and you know, for a lot of schools, a lot of young people, it's really been quite tough for them. Before lockdown, you know, I would really focus heavily on how do I support that next generation? And my focus around D&I is usually around the next generation, giving them opportunities. And I've been very fortunate, you know, we both worked for HP, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and I was given the opportunity from a close friend of mine, Susan Bowen, to take on the leadership of the Black Employee Network, and also as part of the Black Employee Leadership Council. What that allowed me to do was really get into the next generation from a employment perspective, so those who I worked with. And I took some of the early in careers to various events. One was at the Emirates Stadium, and various others. But also it was able to then get me to really focus on how do I support that next gen? And it's whether or not it was going into universities. I was part of the Dare to Be mentoring scheme at De Montfort University. I was going into other universities to talk about, you know, what the opportunity is out there, you know, really focusing on opportunities more than just focus on the negatives. And I've just been able to use that platform to go and inspire. I've been very fortunate. On the back of some of the work that I've done, you know, I've had some, you know, a little bit of recognition for it, which I'm grateful, whether that was the Black British Business Award, the National Diversity Award, the Global Recognition Award, all of those things. But the most important thing that I've been able to achieve is that next generation, seeing some of the amazing young people come through the programs. There was one particular college that I went to, and you know, one of the young guys in there, he was on the verge of dropping out. The group that I actually went to see was called the Dropout Group. When I was talking to him and I was asking him what is it he wants to do, he was basically saying, you know, I want to do an apprenticeship and this is what I want to do, but it felt like a million miles away. And we worked with him. I invited him to the office. I did quite a few work jobs with him. I supported him, helped him, encouraged him. And it was an amazing feeling that when I went back to that college sometime later and I saw the same young man who actually was no longer part of that group, but he stopped me in the corridor and said, you know, just to let you know, I'm now on an apprenticeship scheme. I'm now doing well. I can now see the future. And just being able to have some sort of impact in that, it's been somewhat crazy. It's just been phenomenal. And there's loads of other stories that I can tell you about, that people who I suppose mentor, if that's the right word, but I've seen them grow and develop and become international superstars. So I'm just really amazed with what we can do when we put our minds to it, when we can work with that next generation. And D&I is something that's really important to me.
Wow, amazing, amazing. And so much work that you're doing in that space. And I know we've talked before about this. So tell me a little bit about your kind of philosophy around this, because it's a bit of a sensitive subject. And I know obviously there's a lot of advocates for, or advocacy, should I say, for organizations and leadership and management to focus on diversity and inclusion in the workplace and, you know, create more inclusion for people and so forth. What can individuals do?
You know, the biggest thing for me, and we talk about having opportunities, and there are lots of things, you know, lots of encouragement I would give to organizations around inclusion and diversity. And but my main thing is about what we can do for me, what I can do for me. And it's so important that we take responsibility of our own lives and don't allow others to dictate where we end up. That's the big thing for me. It's only when you take responsibility for your own life that you will discover, when you discover how powerful you are. That's my philosophy. I met, you know, some incredible people who have taken on that philosophy for their own lives, and they took control of their life. They worked hard, they inspired others, and they're, you know, like, from what I can see, they're doing extremely well. And from my perspective, I think I do believe that when you take time and focus on what you want to achieve, you know, we talk about it all the time, the satellite navigation system, where you put in the plots of where you want to go to. And sometimes, yes, you can hit roadblocks, but the good thing about the sat nav, it will take you alternative routes. And I think that's one of the big things for me, is where we have to take control. We have to, and whether that's in inclusion and diversity, whether that's just, you know, anyone in their walks of life, you have to take control, take responsibility of your own life, and don't allow others to dictate where you end up.
And when you say take responsibility, what does that actually mean? So tell me, you know, you're very, very successful. What are the steps that you took? Just to give an example for listeners to understand, what does that mean by taking responsibility?
Yeah, good one. I mean, from one of the things that I started to do was I decided to almost build my, I call it build my own brand, but I wanted to build my own, let's say build my own brand, whereby I'm very much into education. I mean, I'm very much into that ed tech, giving back to that next generation. So I built a brand around that. I support that next generation, but what I do is I put those sound bites, and sometimes people will say to me, oh, you're on social media, but it's about me showing some crazy intelligent people. I know some phenomenal people out there who are doing so well. So it's about putting them on that platform, but it's also about showing others, look, this is what is possible. And nobody knows your story apart from you. So no one can tell your story as good as you can tell your story. So what I've done is I've just developed a bit of a brand. So now when I go and speak to a customer, usually they know what I can do before I speak to them. Or I'm hoping that they can gain a sense of genuineness, that the fact that I do actually care for the sector, and they can see that by my profile. I also try to just showcase that I care about young people and I care about where they end up. So people who are looking for me to join the company, I work for one of the most fantastic company. I'm sure we're going to get on to Zoom in a moment, but I work for an amazing company. But one of the things with Zoom was all about your values, and your values has to match the value of the organization you work for. So looking at what I do, I can showcase that my values are this. This is what I stand for. This is what I want to achieve. This is who I want to empower. And so when you almost put that on show, it almost knocks down some of those obstacles, some of those hurdles that you probably will experience if nobody knows you, if nobody knows what you can achieve, if nobody knows who you are. So that's one of the things that I started to do in my own personal life, is develop my own brand around young people in education, giving back, etc.
I love that. I completely love that. And it's something, as you know, that I advocate for as well. It's, as you said, it's understanding what you stand for. And for me, personal branding is a big part of that. It's multifaceted, and a big focus of it now is around your online presence and what you're putting out on social media and your LinkedIn profile and all of that good stuff. For me, it starts with you as an individual. And I think you've articulated it really well, though, when you say understanding what it is you stand for, getting clear on your own values. This is all about your brand identity. What is the value that you bring to the table, but then communicating that in a way, not just online, but, you know, how are you showing up in person? Is that congruent with what you've put up online? Because we can all go and pay someone to write a beautiful LinkedIn profile for us, but if you then show up to a client or to an interview and you're not congruent with what's been written about you, people are going to already question that. They're going to feel that something's not right, something's not aligned, and then you already lose trust of people, and they start to question everything. So I think it's really important, as you say, to get clear on those aspects of your brand identity, but ensure that you're carrying it through in your brand in terms of your presence, the way you carry yourself, the way that you show up and communicate, and also the relationships that we build, which is something we're going to come on to shortly. But what I wanted to ask you about as well is mentoring, because you mentioned a few times about mentoring and some of the kids that you mentor as an example. So tell me a bit about mentoring and you know, having a mentor. Is that really important? Why? What's the benefit for people?
Yeah, mentors are so important. I give the analogy of the man in the tree. He's cutting down the tree. Boy comes past on the way to school and says, "Hi, Mr. James." Mr. James looks down, waves to the boy, but he's still cutting down the tree. Boy goes to school, comes home from school, sees the guy still, Mr. James, still cutting down the tree. Says, "Mr. James, what are you doing?" "I'm cutting down the tree." "Why are you cutting down the tree? Why are you still cutting down the tree?" And he said, "The reason why I'm cutting down the tree, why it's taking me so long, is because this saw or my axe is blunt." And he said, "Well, why didn't you sharpen your axe?" And he said, "Well, I don't have the time to sharpen my axe because I'm trying to cut down a tree." And I think a lot of us, we're in this situation where we're trying so hard to do things, but we've got nobody around who's giving guidance, nobody around who's telling us, actually, we need to stop that and maybe try this. We're not talking to anyone else about their experience. We're only trying to make it on our own. And what I find is that just does not work. If not all the opportunities, the big opportunities that I've had, is because somebody has been a mentor or a coach or a supporter to me. You know, I think of some of the biggest opportunities that open to me, where someone will say, a corridor conversation, "Who do you think is right for this position?" "Oh, Paul Morrison is." And so my supporters are now communicating with one another. They now come to me and say, "Paul, we're going to give you this position." Total imposter syndrome, never think that I can do it. So first thing I do is phone my mentor. I said, "Mentor, I've just been offered this position. There's no way I think I can do it." The mentor helps you, talks you through, looks at all the highlights and say, "Oh, that you've experienced," and said, "This is, you know, help you to put a plan together." You're now in the job. So your coaches helped you, your mentor, your supporters helped you, your mentor has helped you. And then you say, "Right, coach, help me that I can gain the right skill set." So those three things are really important in order to sharpen your axe. But the mentor thing is so important. My first ever mentor, if I can just very quickly, was a man by the name of Brian. I started a job in, I think it would have been early 90s, possibly 1991, my first ever job. And I was paired with someone called Brian. Brian said to me, "Paul, what's a person like you doing in a company like this?" Now, I kind of thought, what was he meaning by that? I was alarm bells and all those things. Anyway, the following day, I came back into work. And as I was walking into work, Brian drove past, stopped the car, asked me to come in. So I sat there. Now I was a bit upset with Brian, but I kind of pretended I wasn't. And what I realized was from the word go, Brian has saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And he was trying to say, what is a person with your capabilities doing in a position like this? And Brian helped me for about 2 years to totally transform who I was. And from that, I went on to other jobs, and I've achieved so much. But what I did is every single year I call Brian, and he sadly passed away this year. But I call him every single year to say, hey, Brian, I'm still doing okay. Hey, Brian, I'm still now. And he would say, hey, Paul, so what are you doing now? And I would tell him, and he would say, I always knew what you could achieve. And so anybody who I mentor, I always say to them, you can achieve anything. Put your mind to it, you can achieve it. If you focus your energy, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. I always talk about the acronym PUSH. Push until something happens. Persevere. Don't give up. I'm very much about we can achieve, purely because I've had it, and along the line I've had some incredible people. I'm really scared about mentioning names because there's so many amazing people who have been involved in my own life. But also when I look at that next generation, who I mentor, who I provide any sort of counsel where possible, and I see how fantastic they're doing. And they know who they are. I was nearly mentioning a few names, the Mackinoff brothers, the Original Flavors, and all these people. I don't want to mention names because it wouldn't be fair, but some of them have done absolutely fantastic. And so mentor is so important. And just one more thing around mentoring. I also have a group, what I call Super 10. And Super 10 are a list of 10 young people who I have as my mentor. And so every so often, when I have a crazy idea, I go to my Super 10, these youngsters, and I say, I've got an idea. And I remember once we went out for, I took them all out for dinner, and I told them my idea for what I wanted to do. And they tore it to shreds. They ripped it to shreds and told me all the things that I could be doing better. But what I loved about that generation is that they were honest that they could do that. And that helped me to grow even more. Why sometimes when I ask people my age and older, they say, oh, that's fantastic, I love it, you're really good. And they kind of want to pat you on the back. But that next generation, so don't be afraid. If anybody's watching, don't be afraid to get counsel from people who are not in your circles, those youngsters as well. And that's around inclusivity. And I will talk about when we talk about diversity and inclusion, we talk about diversity not just of color, race, but it's also of thought. And sometimes the young people have a different mentality to people who's old like me. Anyway, so I just completely went on one then.
That's all right. That's right. And I think a valid point there made. It's almost a reverse mentoring, isn't it? It's surrounding yourself with a diverse network of people who are there that you can trust, who can call you out on things or challenge you to see a different perspective, but also to help you get where you want to get to even faster. Yes,
absolutely. And we all need a little bit of help. You know what, we've all had it. You talk to any CEO of organization, you talk to any senior leader, everyone's had a door that's open to them. Whether they want to accept it or not, whether they want to go back and say thank you or not, that's irrelevant, but we've all had it. And so my thing is the same way I've had doors open for me, it's the same way that I need to then pass it on and actually open doors for others.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it is so important. And I think it's also important to recognize that you can have informal mentors as well as formal ones. So,
Yeah.
in some cases you can have someone who you meet with, let's say once a month or once a quarter, or you can have someone that you just turn to and call upon in a time of need. I know I had a combination of both, particularly when I was at work. One person in particular always stands out as someone, when I had a challenge and I just didn't know what to do, I knew I could go to him, and he knew me well enough that he could guide me in the right direction, and I could trust him with that. And that helped me a long way to take steps I wouldn't have probably taken otherwise. So yeah, definitely a lot of value to be said of that. So relationships, something we touched on earlier as well. Tell me about your view of relationships, and how important is it for us to surround ourselves with good people, not just mentors, but the network that we have, those connections. How does it help somebody? How has it helped you? Why is it important?
I tell you, there was a point where I realized the importance of having relationships, and I learned about it through a way that so when I worked for an organization, and they used to do these quarterly meetings, quarterly rewards, top salesperson, and what they would effectively do is, at the end of the quarter, your name would get called out and you get to win amazing trip somewhere, family, and you get to go on these high achievers award. And that quarter, I blew it out the park. I achieved probably what hadn't been achieved previously in my sector. I did so well. I went home, I pretty much packed my bag. I told Mrs. M that we're there, we are going to go to the high achievers, and I couldn't see any way, shape or form that I wasn't going to go. And then the time came when they were showcasing the names of those who have been shortlisted, and then from shortlisted, those who had actually won the high achievers. And so when I saw the list of names for shortlisted, I went through it really quickly. And as I went through it, I missed my name. So I went through it again. And when I went through it again, I looked for my name, I didn't see my name again. And then I thought, So I refreshed my computer, I looked again, I didn't see my name. So not only I had won, I didn't win. I actually wasn't even nominated. That's how sad it was. And anyway, I went to a good friend of mine, Clive, and I said to Clive, what's going on? You know the work I've done. You know how well we've done. There is no other way, shape or form that I shouldn't have gone on this. You know that. Everybody knows that. What Clive said to me was, who knows you? So I said, what do you mean by who knows me? So who knows what you're doing? I said, it doesn't matter, the numbers speak for themselves. He said, yeah, no, but who wakes up in the morning in your organization thinking about you? And I said, why should they need to? And he says, well, let's say you're working on a massive deal and you bring in people from your business in on the deal, and they see all the struggles that you have. They see all the upsets. They see all the challenges you have. And then when they see all of that, they see how you've turned that around and successfully secured that business. Because they've been part of your journey, because they've built that relationship with you, when it comes to these types of awards and awards, they obviously are not going, they're going to choose this person, right? Because they know, they wake up in the morning, first thing, they take that call. And they said to me, Paul, nobody knows what you've been doing because you've kept it to yourself. Yes, they can see your name on a leaderboard, but they haven't actually seen you do the work. They haven't seen you wake up in the morning early, and go to bed late. They haven't seen you, having struggled. They just saw what you've achieved. And so I learned from that. And then what I started to do was I started to build relationships, keep those relationships going, and let those people within my organization know what it is I was doing. I started to develop my social media where they started to see some of the posts that I was posting. So not only were they seeing me in the office, not only were they hearing from me, when they wanted to switch off from me, they had no choice, but they had to see me on social media. And so I started to develop those relationships. I also took on almost like a mantra of always going back to say thank you. So anyone who does something good for me, I always go back and say thank you. I always try to contact, just checking in. Lots of my connections will hear me send a message to say, I'm just checking in. Relationships are so important, especially now where we're spending so much time working remotely. It is so important to develop relationships, work on relationships, have relationships. That's kind of my thing. I know that was, but it's really important. Relationships are so important. We can't do this on our own, and relationship takes time. Just to let you know, relationship takes time.
Yeah, really, really well said. And I agree with everything you said there. You know, when I talk about personal branding and you know, the different facets of personal branding, relationships, I think, are one of the biggest aspects of that. And you know, I've always said, and to your point earlier, you know, I had a similar experience in my early career where, you know, I was told that, you know, I was doing all the right things work-wise, but I was too quiet. No one knew what I was about. And I was actually told that, you know, if you want to, you know, accomplish the aspirations you shared with us in your career, you're going to have to speak up. You're going to have to make yourself known, because if people don't know who you are and the value that you're bringing, why would they pick you when it comes to the promotion or the project or the pay rise? You know, you want to be top of mind for people. And that, for me, is where personal branding becomes so important, is making sure that you've got those relationships in place and as you say, cultivating them and nurturing them. Yes. It's not just about knowing, like having 10,000 contacts on LinkedIn, but it's also about, well, how are you nurturing them and staying in touch and offering to reach out and help other people as well.
Yeah,
is a big part of that. It's a two-way process. And you know, something I learned when I left my corporate career to start my businesses, I will have to start asking for help. And it's something I'd never done before, and I found it really, really difficult. But actually, I realized when I did reach out and ask for help that I very rarely got a no. You know, unless someone genuinely just wasn't able to help me. But actually, people like to help. They you know, they want to reach out and support other people, and they want to bring people up with them. So like you said, I think it is so important to recognize that and then to take that action.
Yeah, for me, relationship is a bit like a bank account. You pay into this bank account, keep paying into it. At some point you want to make withdrawals, but if you're not paying into the bank account, if you're not building that relationship, it's really difficult to make withdrawals. And I get so many people will say to me, Paul, can you do me a favor? Paul, can you do me a favor? And I've never heard from them ever, apart from when they want something. And so I'm always determined not to do that myself. Relationship is also like, I don't know if you've ever heard the proverb of the Chinese bamboo tree. You know, you have a bamboo tree and it takes 5 years to grow a bamboo tree, 5 years to grow one. But what you have to do is you have to water, you have to fertilize it every single day. You fertilize it, you water it every single day. Sometimes you don't feel like you're actually getting anything out of it, but you've got to keep at it. And then on the 5th year, then you see the breakthrough. And they say in 5 weeks, a bamboo tree can grow 90 feet tall. So my question is how long has it taken for that bamboo tree to go 90 feet tall? Is it 5 weeks or is it 5 years? And typically it's 5 years. In other words, just because you see some people building very quick relationships with people, and that's not how long it takes. It takes a long time. So you have to keep at it, keep watering it, keep fertilizing that relationship, keep checking them. And by the way, once you do that, you'll then see rewards at the end in any relationship.
Yeah, well said, well said. And so tell me a little bit about your experience of lockdown. What has that taught you?
Lockdown has been absolutely crazy for me. I've tried to juggle so many things that's been happening. Personal life, it's been tough. I have had so many people around me sadly lost their life because of this COVID, and I won't go into that now because it's still quite raw in terms of the amount of people. And even now, I'm still experiencing so many people passing away. I think last week there was 3 people in 3 days. So it's still pretty raw. I decided that I wanted to take time out to support my community. So I love cooking, and I decided to cook for the homeless, the vulnerable. I bought so many personal equipment, masks, and gave them to vulnerable people, cancer people, just generally supporting. I set up my own little Facebook group and for the community. And then what I did was local shops. I went to a cafe, I prepaid for drinks. I went to a local butcher's, I prepaid for food. And then I went onto my Facebook group and told those who are in need, please go to these, landmarks where you can get free food and drinks and so on. And I decided that I wanted to give back to my community, just wanted to give back. About a year ago, I was so privileged to have joined Zoom. I still remember my interview now with my boss, where he said, Paul, you've been giving back to so many people. It's our time to give back to you. And I've been working for Zoom, and it's been phenomenal. Just bringing all of those schools online, those colleges online, remote working, helping teachers to be able to train students, helping students be able to connect with one another. It's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing, and Zoom has been just fundamentally just brilliant throughout this whole process. And what I'm always thinking, we have an opportunity to do so much. My encouragement to everyone is, whatever you want to do, now is the time to do it. If you don't run with it, then sometimes you'll have no choice but to surrender. If you've got dreams, ideas, you've got services, things that you want to do, now is a great time to do it. And I've just been so fortunate that I've been able to work for an organization such as Zoom that's allowed me to, to still connect with all of these establishments, these schools, these colleges. But as well as that, I've been able to do some of those other amazing things behind the scenes as well. So yeah, it's been crazy. It's been absolutely crazy. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I think it's Christian D. Larson said, believe in yourself and all that you are. Know that there's something inside of you that's greater than any obstacle. I've just used this period to really prepare myself for bigger and better things. And I've just been very fortunate. There's a book somewhere called Letters from Lockdown, and it's got famous faces, Natasha Kaplinsky's children idea of the book. And in the book, you've got letters from 10 Downing Street, from Paul McCartney, and so on, Jacqueline Wilson. And I was asked to write a letter from lockdown to be featured in this book. So everything that I've been through, it's somehow it still works to improve me and to make me so much a better person.
Incredible. What a journey. What a journey for you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Highs and lows, and coming out the other end with great contributions there and great accomplishments.
Yeah, you're right. It's what I found is it has been highs and lows, but you learn more that relationships are even more important. You learn that friendship is even more important. You know, the people you are able just to pick up the phone and talk to. You know that having a coach, if you're out there and you haven't got a coach, you know, you should be phoning Leela and saying, be my coach, right? You should be getting people out there just to be able to support what you want to do. I think now is the time where you can't do this all by yourself. You can't. I've learned that. We're all in this together. During the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs, and I was busy. So why couldn't I then take some of what I earned to give back to those who are in need? You know, it's not just about me, it's about all of us are in this together. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing during lockdown.
Yeah, incredible. Thank you for being so open and sharing as well. So tell me, Paul, what is next for you?
Good question. There's so much. We've got anti-bullying week coming up in November, so I'd like to try and do some things on that. There's we've just been through Black History Month, so I was very busy doing Black History Month. Zoom is just rising, it's amazing. So the work that we're doing with schools, with colleges are just tremendous. And yeah, it's just keeping myself really busy and focused on supporting that education establishment. But also, as lockdown starts to ease, I'm really planning to go back into some of those organizations, those schools, to really try and pick up where I left, because I have been doing it remotely, but getting back face to face. You know, there's some of the students who have missed not having someone in just to sit down and chat to them. So yeah, what next is going to be just fantastic. And at some point I also need to focus on me, and that's another thing that I've started to do a lot more of, is focus on putting the oxygen on myself first before I put it on. Well, that's what I'm telling myself I am, but at the moment my oxygen mask is still very much packed away. But hopefully I'm going to start taking a bit more time to support myself, to ensure that I can continue before I can continue to help others. So the future is extremely exciting. I'm really, really excited about my future. I think there's going to be some amazing things that's going to happen. Definitely one to watch.
Definitely one to watch. I'm very excited for what you're going to continue to accomplish and to contribute, and the impact you're making, you know, for the next generation, and also for people across the education sector, and everyone, as you said, that you know, your networks, your connections as well, because you're an incredible person, Paul, and you're so generous with your time and your energy, and just wanting to help other people to succeed as well.
Yeah,
really, really inspiring.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. You know, this was never, you know, I didn't set out to do what I do. You know, like I said, I met some incredible people. I see what they do, and I just thought, well, how do I, you know, how can I just be a little beacon? How can I inspire just a few people? You know, when I started doing this, some people didn't get it. You know, I know some people will say, I don't get it. Why is he, you know, wanting to do so much good when he should be focusing on this? But what happened was, the more good you did, the more other things started to pick up and do well. As I gave, it was almost like a distribution center. As I gave, things started coming back in. As I gave more, things started coming back in. And the distribution center just seems to be getting full all the time as I'm giving. So, you know, I do believe that it's so important to keep giving. But also, I've been very, very fortunate. I can't forget about how fortunate I've been. You know, I've won various things. I've won a global recognition award. I flew out to San Francisco, picked up a an award from Jesse Jackson, who was, just phenomenal. Sitting down with Jesse, he actually came and sat in my place, and we were chatting. And when he gave me the award, I was just blown away by it. I was in Canary Wharf and I saw my picture on one of those big tall buildings, the Jumbotron or whatever it's called. I've been nominated for the Black British Business Award, the National Diversity Award, the EdTech 30 Award, the Inclusion and Diversity. There's so many awards I've been nominated for. But the most important thing for me is just seeing that next generation being able to achieve more than what I've been able to achieve. And if that can happen, then if I can help somebody as I travel along, then my living is definitely not in vain. That's me.
Absolutely not in vain whatsoever. You're making a huge impact, seriously. So yeah, and Paul, I'd like to say thank you so much for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule. We've had this diarised now for months, haven't we?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Every time I see you out there, I said, I'm sorry, I will do it, I promise you. And I know this has been really quick. I know we would love to be able to even spend more time to drill into some of the sections. So I'm aware. So if there is a part 2 that we need to do, I'm, absolutely up for doing that. But no, you're the one that's doing incredible. You are. I've just been so touched by what you're doing. I always remembered the late evenings walking past you in the office, and we used to talk about some of these dreams that we had. And when I see what you're doing and how you are impacting the lives of so many people are doing extremely well in their career, and guess what, they never see you. Then all of the awards that they getting, they never see you because you're the one that's doing it all behind the scenes. And so there's a lot of people that's getting a lot of recognition because of you. And I think you're doing a tremendous work. So I should say thank you to you.
That's very touching, Paul. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. And actually, you've given me a thought there. Is what we could probably do is delve into a couple of these in more depth on a live, maybe.
Yes.
Lives that we do and chat there on specifics.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that would be great. And then if anybody's got a question, but I am conscious that we were trying to fit within a time frame, and just so much. I mean, I haven't even told you about how I started my job. I haven't told you about some of the stuff that I've had to do to get to where I am, leaving home or whatever. I'm just grateful. I've got an amazing family. I've got an amazing friendship group. I've got some incredible people that I can call friend. And I'm just delighted that I've just been interviewed by one of them.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. And I will let you go now because I know we're running over time. But like I say, once again, appreciate you taking time to chat with me. I know we've only scratched the surface with you. There's so much more to share. So we'll definitely look at how we can get those conversations going.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure. My absolute pleasure. And for those of you who are watching this on video, because this will go, the video version of this podcast will go onto the YouTube channel, My Brand TV. I would just like to apologize for my lighting. I had to make a very last minute switch to my location in order to record this today. But obviously this isn't about me, this is about Paul. So I hope you accept the apology for the poor lighting on my side. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do subscribe to the show so you don't miss any future episodes. And remember to leave a review telling us about your key learnings and what you enjoyed the most. And do share this podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can spread the word on the importance of personal branding when it comes to your career advancement. And also ensure that others can benefit from these invaluable insights from many inspirational leaders. I will be eternally grateful. And if you are looking to earn more money, to get promoted, to secure your next role and advance your career, and would like me to support you personally on that journey to get you there, then reach out to me and let's arrange a chat. Alternatively, why don't you check out my personal branding launchpad, a group training and mentoring program. Finally, if you'd like to connect with me directly, then do reach out and direct message me on LinkedIn. You can find the link as well as any other resources mentioned in the show notes. I'll see you next time.